tech savvy, so whatevs, whatevs. But without further ado, I'm going to bring in Miss Julee Patterson. Make sure you guys say welcome to her and give her a little round of applause because it was nice of her to pop in today, especially since she was supposed to come in last week. So she took out 2 Sundays for us. So here we are. Julie, I am hoping that you can enlighten us about the California real estate market. I have read all sorts of crazy stuff saying that it is going berserk. Is there any reprieve? Is there ever going to be in 2021, is there going to be any more bust? Because I keep looking and every time I turn around, they're just kicking the can further down the road for people that are in bad shape. So they're like, yeah, you can stay in your home for another while longer. I wonder when's the poop going to hit the fan?
It really is like mayhem here right now. I mean, I can't even quite believe how, I mean, I own a small real estate brokerage here in Northern California. And I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. Never have I seen it this insane. I mean, it's pretty crazy. We're having in our particular market a huge influx from that Silicon Valley Bay Area market that is moving a little bit northeast to our community because we're a little bit more affordable. So in our area, we have a lot of our sellers are moving out of state, maybe coming your way. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our buyers are coming in from more expensive. So we're just having this weird demographic shift. And people are putting in December, I ran some stats in December of 2019, there was about 22% of the homes were selling under list price. Now it's only the December of 2020 was only 9.4 and going 20%. I mean, right. It's not uncommon for houses, the list price to be, or the sale price to be 20% above list price right now. And that's even with cash buyers waiving appraisal contingencies, paying significantly over appraised value. Basically sellers giving sellers everything they want, which is just kind of crazy.
It's since you have done this for quite some time. The last time I saw something like this was, in that 2006. I lived in Florida at the time. And yeah. I mean, anybody could throw a sign up in the yard and they would have a line of cars that would be parading through. I mean, tons and tons of people going through houses, and the houses could be total junk. And they would go every day. It was another $10,000 they were going up. So, the thing that I kept seeing though is like, once the moratorium was over, we're going to see these prices drop. And again, they kicked the can down the road even further. Eventually this is going to, sometimes the bill's going to come due, and that's what my biggest concern is. And then the other thing is that because the prices have gone up so high, some people are getting tax bills that are going to be like, that's not what I was expecting or budgeting for. This tax bill is like crazy. How much, let's just say you had a $500,000 house in 2019. How much average would it have gone up in 2020?
Well, what's really weird is I think there was a lot of people that were waiting for the election and then waiting for the first of the year before they went out and house hunted. Mm-hmm. So the same floor plan, just to kind of give you an example, in November of this year, my main business is in Placer County, which I'll give you an example of Roseville, for example. So the same floor plan we had listed for about $465 in November. And kind of had a hard time selling it. I mean, we sold it, of course, and it was great and everything, but it wasn't like flying off the shelf, super hot market. That same exact floor plan is at about $520 right now. So between November and January, with this influx after the first of the year, significantly high price points. So it's going to be a little bit hard to say because there's a lot that just haven't closed yet. So the data that we're pulling doesn't show the increase, this super spike that we've kind of are seeing in our market. I'm imagining when those stats come out for the January closings and February closings, there's definitely going to be a spike, but we can't tell that right now because they're just going as pending sales. So, but I know when we're putting offers in on properties, like I said, I've got cash buyers not getting it at $50,000, $60,000 over asking with no contingencies, and we're still not getting them accepted. So
I never thought I'd see this again in my life. I mean,
Well,
I thought after 2006 and people lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on homes that they put in, that people had learned their lesson. Like I would held off. I just, it's honest to me. And from what my experience of dealing with this kind of stuff, it's unsustainable in my opinion. I
well,
don't know how it is in your California market, but I know that in Florida and where we live, 20, 30, $40,000 over asking price is ridiculous and it's never going to sustain.
Well, the difference between that market and this one is that people have skin in the game this go around. So
Mhm.
that go around, we were doing 100% financing, have a pulse, get a loan. And now the criteria to get financing is a little bit more stringent, and we have a lot of cash buyers. So between putting significant down payments, paying those over appraised values, and they're bridging the gap with cash, and people are willing to, it's a lot harder to walk away from your home when you've put hard-earned cash into it. Whereas the people that were getting 100% financing back in the day in 2006 that didn't have the income to even be able to afford it at any point, right?
Mhm.
They easy for them to walk away. They didn't have a whole lot to lose. And now at least people can, they're getting loans that they can afford. So at least they can afford these homes, and they have put cash down. So it's a little bit of a different market. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for people to walk away, and we're not going to have this. I mean, there could be a market correction, but in our region, I'm not saying there's not likely to have a huge crash, because those people are just going to sell their houses if it came down to it, not have to do short sales or foreclosures like what we saw that caused the whole crash last time.
I think it depends on the price point of the house, because people that are living in smaller, more affordable housing are the most ones that's the lowest amount of income are the same people that are affected by the types of job loss that we've seen and still continues to grow throughout the United States. So yeah, the people that live in, really nice houses, they're probably not going to see what the other part of America that's really, really suffering are going to be going through. And yes, I think they're going to see a lot of foreclosures. And what's going to happen to those people? Investors are just going to scoop them up and they're going to, flip them. And like those people are the ones that are going to be hurting the most. And I don't know if you know this, and some of my viewers know this because I've mentioned it before, but people that own like manufactured homes, a lot of times they rent the space underneath the land that the manufactured home sits on.
Right.
So the rental moratorium didn't cover those people. So they still had to pay the lot rents. Then the mortgage moratorium, they usually have what they call a chattel loan. And guess what? The mortgage moratorium didn't cover those people either. So they didn't get any reprieve. And those are the same people that are going to be losing their jobs. So again, that's another scoop of investors that are going to come through, buy those out and start renting them out. And I'm just like, man, it's easy to it's easy to stand back and go, well, I feel fine. A lot of people are like, well, no, I mean, everything's fine. It's just turn off the news. I'm like, you got to see it from other people's perspective. That's what I worry about. That's my biggest concern, is that people that are low income wage earners that are going to be the ones that get hit the hardest, even if they had the home that they paid for that was given to them, let's just say by a family member, their tax bill is going to come due, and this is what they've budgeted for. And these are people that are living paycheck to paycheck, and now they have this exorbitant tax bill that they didn't have in years previous, and they
Right.
didn't account for that. So what are they going to do then? I
It's
don't know.
hard. I think too, we're pretty lucky in our region that the people that are coming from the Silicon Valley are high wage earners. And so they are not going to be as affected in that way, the majority of our area. So I know that it's hard. And I hate seeing my heart aches for the areas that are going to be hit harder, I'm sure, than we are. And I
Mhm.
feel grateful on that from our regard. And we have quite a few people that I know that have lost jobs here, that have
Mhm.
sold their homes for higher price points, and are probably living a substantially better life, even with no employment, selling their house in California, moving to Tennessee and other states that are a lot more affordable, where the cost of living is way better than it is here,
Mhm.
and being able to shift they get to use on their equity. They were able to buy a house and be able to support their family for a few years with their equity that they had from their California house. So I think that there's going to be quite a few people leaving California that are in. I mean, it's probably going to get priced out for a lot of folks.
I know that Texas has become, especially Austin, Texas, has been the dumping ground for a lot of people from California, and it's caused their market to go crazy. Matter of fact, I was talking to Jeremy Knight with the Knight Group. He's with Real Estate now. Anyways, he was saying that one house, people were going through 98 offers, 98 offers. That's insanity. We don't have that kind of market here. We have a strong market. There's no doubt about it, but we don't have 98 offers. We might have 3, which is still tough. I hate that. My husband wants to make sure everybody knows to make sure you hit the like button. He's so funny and he's so good. Okay. Joseph says, people seem to forget that they have the freedom to move and don't understand why someone would rather live in a car in California than move inland to a house they can afford. I agree. So, but I will say this, Joseph, let me just put it this way. My husband and I have a plan, an exit strategy that we want to retire with. And we can't leave. We can't do anything we want to do because we have family here. So some people are very emotionally attached to a specific area because they've grown up there, they've known nothing else, and they're very genuinely afraid to leave something they don't know. Fear is one of the things that cripples people more than anything. Mm-hmm. And the fear of doing the wrong thing. And if they go somewhere where they don't know anybody, they have no connections to an area, even though they could afford to live more, but they don't have any friends, they have no church, they have nothing that ties them to that specific area, they can feel extremely lost. I get it. If it was me, I'd pack up my stuff and go anywhere in the world. But I do understand why some people are like, I can just live in my car for a couple months and then I can find a place to live. I get it. I do understand it, even though I would never do it. No way. I'd be like, we're moving to Texas. Get out of here. We're going. We're moving. So
I have a lot of people that feel like their parents, their elderly parents, are still in the community and they feel like they can't leave them. So I get that a lot, where people just feel like they cannot leave their folks, and the folks do not feel like they can leave their community. So I've had a lot of people that have, sounds terrible, but have waited until their parents have passed, and then they have uprooted and moved to another state and kind of started fresh in another area.
Okay, someone wants their question answered. Okay, so this is answer our question, please. Okay. My wife wants to know if now is the time to buy, or should we wait until there's a market correction? This is one of those things. I don't know where you live. I don't know where you live. So I would suggest, first of all, meeting with a lender to know what your budget is. Secondly of all, find yourself a good, reputable real estate agent. If you meet with one, you don't like them, find somebody else. There's no reason you're tied to anybody. Don't sign anything until you know that that's the person you want to work with. And let them dictate what they know about their market. Every market, I live outside of Baton Rouge, but I'm considered the Baton Rouge market. I live outside in this area called Ascension Parish. My parish is completely different than the rest of the Baton Rouge market. There's another little market called Livingston Parish, totally different market there. So you have to get somebody that understands your area specifically. If it, like the way it's going now, I just don't think the market can sustain these types of prices for long. Eventually the plug's going to get pulled. The heyday is going to be over, in my opinion. And I just don't see it's sustaining itself nationwide as a whole. So, but definitely talk to your local real estate agent, because they're going to be able to tell you what they believe much better than I could here on the other side in Louisiana, in this little tiny town. If you're going to sell, though, but sell it. Sell that sucker.
I also think you have to live somewhere, right? So what are you paying in rents? Is this going to be, you got to look at, there's a lot of things to look at when you're considering buying. I mean, if you're like here, our rental market is really, really tight as well. And the rental prices are ridiculous. So if you have to live here, I'd rather see you, right now, rates are so low. And so even if the prices are high, at the end of the day, for most people, the biggest thing is affordability. So if it's affordable at your price point, even if the price point's higher and the interest rate is lower, they are mainly concerned with what is their monthly outflow of cash. And so if you've got to do something I mean, you have to consider all of these things. And is it going to be a long-term hold? Are you going to be here? You know, you're going to be in your location for a long time versus this is a temporary thing. If it's temporary, maybe now isn't the time to buy. But if you do plan on staying long-term, I mean, seems like if it were me, I'd probably still buy if I needed to be in a place long-term. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider.
Don't stretch your budget to the nth degree.
Right.
If you're like, is now the right time to buy and you have the money to do it? Yes, the interest rates are low. But if you don't, if you're like I have to buy a house, I don't, you know, like this, if you're trying to time the market just right and everything, wait it out. I mean, just wait it out. David brings up a thing, moratoriums and evictions. When is that going to happen? Because it keeps happening is our federal government keeps putting in another bill that kicks that can down the road even further. What they're finding is that most of these people are in rental situations, which is like, well, then you're thinking, well, that's not really going to affect us. But there's people that own those rental properties, myself included. I have rental properties. We have someone that doesn't live there anymore. It's empty. People are eventually going to, like, you can't not pay a mortgage for so long, you know, like, and I can't, because it's an investment property, there's no mortgage moratorium on investment properties. So we are SOL, you know, I just don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how people can keep, how long they're going to keep kicking this can down the road, because eventually someone's going to want their money. That's just my opinion. What you think?
Same. I mean, I have rental properties as well, and you can only go so long. I mean, somebody is paying for when people aren't paying their rent, someone else is still paying, and you can't go years and years without paying rent without people are going to be hurt along the way. And so it's kind of hard to say. We are seeing some of those rental properties. The hard thing is that you can't get the tenant out to be able to pay, to be able to sell it. And so you're having to sell with a tenant in place, which scares off a lot of people. And I mean, the situation is not good. I mean, all around. No,
I mean, no, nobody's winning.
No,
nobody's winning.
Nope.
Even the banks aren't winning. Like, even it was like, oh, this is a bank thing. No, the banks aren't even winning in this situation, not at all. But that's the whole thing. Is like, they were like, you said there was going to be a crash. Yes, eventually there's going to be a crash. If they had not extended out this moratorium, which they did for a lot longer, I don't know how long they can do it for, though. I mean, like, eventually someone's going to have to pay the check at some point. Question: is it normal to be on a registration list for new construction with the price listing to be told by the time we go to closing, the price might be higher due to the economy? Well, I don't know how I was going to say, I don't know how normal it is in California, but here in Louisiana, there's a negotiated price that's made at the time of once the house is, like, it has to get to a certain point. Like, if it's just at the framing stage, it isn't locked in at that price. Then I think it has to be 30 days out. So 30 days prior to closing, that's when your locked in prices. But how, like, so you negotiate the price right before closing? Is that how it works? Julie, how does it work?
We have so many people that want new construction. So you get on, like, when she's talking about registry, I think it was a she, it went away. So Valerie. When they're talking about being registered, they get on basically like a wait list, and you've registered for a particular community, and they may be all sold out of the floor plan that you want. And let's say it was listed at $500,000 for this particular floor plan, and there is 20 people on a wait list, and and you've registered for that, and so you're on the list. By the time you come due, they can't tell you what that price point is going to be. So right now it's at 500. They may go through 3 releases at $25,000 increments a piece by the time it gets to you. So by the time your house is ready, which could be, a year and a half, 2 years from now, they can't tell you what the price is, because that particular phase of construction hasn't been released yet. So typically around here, they release a fairly limited number of models for that particular price, and then they move on. So, and if there's 20 people on a wait list, it doesn't stay at 20, because those people find other housing and find other options. And so typically, 20 people deep on a wait list, you might be 2 to 3 phases in at best. So it shouldn't be too terribly much different, but that's a total common occurrence around here.
Can you go negotiate the percentage of how much it can go up beforehand? Like, can you negotiate that prior to? Man,
Not right now.
the buyers have no power, none
With
whatsoever.
supply and demand, and so
I know. I
mean,
know. It
yeah.
just I like it more fair. But I do want to address this comment because it's burning my butt. Rolling on the floor, no one is winning. But real estate agents are saying the market is hot and buy now. A lot of laughs. I didn't say that, matter of fact. I said if you could hold off, hold off. I don't want you spending too much money. And if you talk to a bunch of real estate agents right now and you got them in a room, every single one of them would tell you they're exhausted because they're running from house to house to house, losing offers one right after another after another. If you've been working with a client for 6 months and they've had 5 offers and each one of them have been rejected because they didn't have enough to ask for over, it's heartbreaking for them. It's heartbreaking for you. You've spent 6 months with them where you do not get paid as a real estate agent until the day it closes. So you may think that this is all fun and games for us, but it 100% isn't. So sorry, I had to get off. Let me get off my soapbox now. Let me calm down.
The truth is, it is a hot market. That's not wrong. It is a hot market, and if you do need to buy, when we say buy now, if you've got to live somewhere, if you got a job transfer, and like we have that here, where people have transferred their job and they have to buy. It's very difficult. When people say it's a hot market, it genuinely is a hot market. We're not just saying that this ambiguous thing. This is what's really happening. And when there's properties that are getting 15 to 20 offers, like around here, that is totally normal to have that many offers. And so clearly it's a hot market. That's the truth. And if you want in, you better get in. I wish people would have, I called it a regret fee. The people that were trying to look in the summer that are like, I'm going to hang tight and wait till now. That same floor plan is significantly more expensive than it was. And they were saying that they thought it was going to crash back last summer. And now they're 50 grand, a $50,000 differential. So I think it's hard.
So the improve agility said it for something very true. Also, builders have no idea what the cost of lumber will be. And that has been one of those things through the whole entire, I call it the pandy, that has happened, that the lumber costs, not only lumber, it was roofing, shingles, all sorts of things. My husband was in roofing and that getting roofing shingles was super difficult. Not only did we have the whole thing with the pandy, we had tons of natural disasters throughout California, throughout the Midwest, believe it or not, and even here in Louisiana with hurricanes. Those building materials go to disaster areas first, and then it's a competing on who's going to get what, and then of course then it drives the price up because people are like, well, I want it now, I'll pay 10 cents extra per blah blah blah, so you have to, I do see that there's a lot more new construction that wasn't going on in the last year that seems to be moving along a lot quicker this year. I've noticed a lot more builders building. Is that what some of the problem in California is? Is there a shortage of space? And is that why it makes the housing prices go up so quickly? Is because there isn't a lot of new construction coming in? Is that it?
There's a lot of things in California. So we have a shortage of labor. So we've had the natural disasters that have pulled some of our labor from our areas to some other locations. So construction labor was kind of hard to come by for a while. Then we had, of course, the legislation and everything here. Getting through all the red tape for any kind of building here is also quite difficult. So you have that. You've got the lumber shortage. That was a huge problem. So it's compacted, and we have a ton of people. California is a very populated area, and we are limited on space. So there's so much that the builders that are building right now, we had a break where we weren't having much new construction happening at all, and it's starting to pick back up. And so the new construction that are going now are doing fantastic. They're doing real well right now.
Yeah, that's our home builders here are doing very well as well. I just they had a problem. They couldn't get in. they couldn't get the supply, so it was causing the home prices around the area to go up quite a bit. But it definitely seems like they're back on track, and there is waiting lists because people do want. Especially we have like tons of cows and stuff here. So there's like people that are like, I could buy an existing home, or I could have this one built for a little bit more money and have everything that I want in it. And so they are opting for that. But because it was so squeezed, the home builders were so squeezed this year. I mean, people are like, I got to get a house. I can't wait for a builder. I gotta get a house. And I don't know how it is for you, but here, a lot of people that were in subdivisions that were like, you know what? I never wanted to live in a subdivision anyways. Let's go ahead and sell it because we're gonna make a mint off of it. And they're going way out in the country. They're like, I sold properties, they were like, you know what? Do you got anything on 5 acres? I don't even care if it has a shed on it. I will make that work. I was showing property to a lady from Maryland, and she wanted to make sure that she was far away from people. She wanted to be 5 acres away from people, nowhere near people.
Well, the old Pandy has definitely made people want a little bit more space than we've been before. We are seeing fairly regularly on our rural properties, the internet download and upload speed is actually a huge selling point, because when you live in the country, you typically have worse internet. And so if you can have a rural property that has more space and privacy and less neighbors, yet has good internet so you can work from home, that is a huge selling point. And so those particular properties tend to get more money because they have the ability to work from home in a nice rural location. So the rural properties are even harder to come by. Most of the stuff that we've been able to get in contract lately on rural homes has been off market, that we've had to put the work in to find the properties that are for sale to be able to help those people move from a, neighborhood situation into some more rural living. Same with homes with pools. Homes with pools have shot up. If you've got a pool, you can write your own ticket right now for sale, because people being in the whole pandemic, they need to have entertainment and things to do at home.
You would think that pools would be a thing here, as hot as it is in Louisiana, and they're not a thing. Isn't that weird? They're not a thing. I mean, they do add a little bit of value, but not what you put into it. I mean, you put a $50,000 pool, just the pool, forget about the concrete. You put that in. People here make those outdoor kitchens. An outdoor kitchen here would get you a lot more money than a swimming pool, which is weird, right?
Really?
Yeah. MJEE, California has too many rules, regulations, and fees, and has nothing to do with availability of labor. I guess, and the one thing I did find out about California, which is not like, because I'm doing a video right now, is that subdivisions, in order for a developer to buy a piece of land to make it for subdivide lots, can be like 2 to 3 years of red tape just to get through, just to be able to subdivide that piece of land to make the development in the first place. And I was like, that's insanity.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a builder right now that has 18 units or 18 lots that they're trying to develop. And they've been working for, I think it's been over 3 years to try to get all of the approval from the county and whatnot. So it's a lot. And we definitely do have a shortage. The labor is hard here. We've had some wildfires near us, and it's better right now. But a little while ago, it was tough because a lot of the labor force was kind of shifted to try to, help in some of the other areas, and it was more difficult to get concrete contractors, painting contractors, framers, all of that. There wasn't as many available contractors as we had in years past. So it's been tough.
We've got lots of people that want to build here. Lots. Maybe they should go to California. Maybe they get more money. Like they could live in a tiny home on one of those lots and then build like crazy.
Well, a lot of our areas won't allow for a tiny home. So
I know that's true of everywhere. Now I know. Now I've like in LA County. I know. Like I thought, from what I was told by, because a congressman called me on the phone, that they had released some, I mean, maybe even San Francisco, but they had released some areas to allow for a second dwelling, and which would be a tiny home to put on the property. Mm-hmm. So that way, because there wasn't enough affordable housing. Yeah. So they were saying that people could rent, like you could put it in your backyard if you had the space, or, in the back of the house, like where that garage area is, you could put it there, and that you could rent that space out to people like people that work for the fire department, teachers and healthcare workers and everything else. And then they would get a tax credit for having those kind of renters on their property. So I thought that was an interesting way to help solve some of the affordable housing problem that they have in LA. I thought that was great. Warren says, question, what programs
do doing Airbnb?
Oh yeah. Warren says, what programs do you recommend for first-time home buyers?
In California? Or
go ahead. Yeah.
In California, we have a lot of different programs for first-time home buyers. And so the loan limits are different for different counties within California, but definitely FHA programs. We have CalHAFA, we have Chenoa is one. There's a lot of programs that have grants and different kind of down payment assistance that you're able to get, that you can get into a home for as little as $500. I mean, it's pretty, if needed, and if you qualify and you want to be a homeowner here, there is definitely things that we can do to help you be able to achieve that goal.
There is some legislation that's sitting out there that should be hitting the Congress and the Senate and all that talks about some first-time home buying tax credits and incentives. There was something that was floating around about $15,000, either in a tax credit or as almost like closing costs type thing. Mm-hmm. Like they had done that years ago, if you remember before. So that could be something that could help people. But when I remember this, that it ended up causing those prices of those homes that people could afford, that would be gotten that tax credit, made those houses go up. Did that happen in your area?
Yes. I mean, there's always going to be, there's nothing comes for free, really. I mean, at the end of the day, somebody's paying for it. And so if you get in early in those programs, you're usually better off than to the tail end. Right. So if that comes out, I encourage you to take advantage of it as soon as you can. When you first hear about it, jump on it and go for it and get your tax credit.
I had an old economics teacher, and there was one of the few classes in high school I did very well, and it was economics. But one of the first things he wrote on the board, the whiteboard, he's like, "There's no free lunch." And he's like, "If you can understand this concept and wrap your brain around it, just remember, there's no free lunch. Somebody has to pay for it. So on every single test, if you ever come up with like everything's free, then you did it wrong. There's no free lunch." So I've always remembered that. I'm like, whenever somebody says, well, why can't they do that? I'm like, because there's no free lunch. There's no such thing as free lunch.
I've heard that saying too. Sometimes the most expensive things are free. It ends up being the most expensive.
Oh, here's a question. Okay. Since California housing is so expensive and California has some of the worst outbreaks of COVID, when is their market correction? Would you expect California prices will fall the most? Do you go for that? I can't answer.
I'm expecting the Bay Area market to fall because of everyone's fleeing, but it's still crazy busy for them right now. So I would anticipate in our area, again, we're a little bit northeast of Sacramento. We're a little bit away, about 2 hours or so from the Bay Area. And as people shift and migrate, I'm expecting that they're going to see a correction first. And then it typically happens that we get it a little bit after, just like the rest of the United States gets it after California. Typically, when there's any kind of movement or something, we are usually kind of the first to kind of hit it. Coasts tends to be that way. And so I do expect at some point that with the amount of people that are leaving the Bay Area, I would imagine that and it's so expensive. I mean, literally $1 million for a very small, not even nice house that is common. And so that is not sustainable at all. So our region, even though it seems expensive to a lot of the rest of the country, in California, we're still considered pretty affordable. And so I don't see us me locally in Sacramento region, having the same kind of correction and problems that they're going to have in some of the more expensive, like in Southern California and the Bay Area regions. But I mean, if somebody had a crystal ball and could answer all those questions, that would be amazing. But nobody really can tell. You can't really predict these things. You can guess. Everybody's just kind of guessing.
Just I don't know. Just Crystal Mom said $15 tax credit was an election promise, not reality, not written in the bill as of now. Yes, I know. That's what I said. It's kind of like it's sitting on somebody's desk. Who knows? Just like everything always sounds good until they get elected, and everybody gets elected. I don't care what side you're on. It's always like that. 21 is the scariest thing I've seen. Prices going through the roof, government freezing evictions, lumber futures at ATH 207 vibes all over again. At this time is different, is what everyone keeps saying. There is a difference because of the type of buyers that have bought homes in the past 10, 20 years or whatever. 2007. So how many years ago was that? 13, 14? Anyways, that many years ago, the type of buyer that was buying is like Julie was saying earlier, was they were buying zero interest. Like they could state income. They could say, well, I think I make 200,000 a year, and they buy a house and they wouldn't even have it furnished. Not saying that was commonplace, but it would happen. And more people had no problem walking away from those homes. And some people just got in a bad way. They were like, I have to move. I have no choice. And so they take a big hit and they do a lot of short sales. That was big. That was huge in Florida, was the short sales. They had to move to a different area outside the country. And so they would do these short sales. It's sad. It was a sad time. My whole thing is that there's a lot of people, and that continues to rise, that don't have a job. And then some of these people were already just making it paycheck to paycheck. So now you're like, okay, well, their mortgage is frozen. They'll be fine. Some point, this is going to come due. It's going to come due. I don't know when, because like I said, they keep kicking the can down the road. And I can't say when the poop's going to hit the fan.
So right now, at least again, in my market, when that does happen, before, if people were in that kind of a pickle, they didn't have any equity to sell it. So they would typically either walk away or do the short sale. Now they at least have the ability to, if they're in a bind and find themselves have 6 months worth of payments that are now due, or a year's worth of payments that are now due, at least now they have the opportunity to sell it and have a profit, and they could get some money out to be able to relocate or do what they need to do. So before, they didn't have that. They were waiting on the banks to be able to do a cash for keys program, or they were damaging homes, and it was a huge mess back then. Like, we have one community here that was really built basically in the peak. Like, the entire town was built right in the peak of the market. And then when it crashed, because it was built in that peak, everybody had the same type of, there was negative amortization loans, and there was these ARM rates that were resetting, and there was all these things happening. And so that entire community, you would have like every single house on the street was either in foreclosure or short sale. And so the whole place just went to complete crap. It took a total nosedive. And now the people that are buying right now, it's just not the same picture of a buyer is what we have right now. And so the hope is that even if we have a correction and people do need to sell, that they're not in these horrible ways that they were in last go round. And so that's the hope. I mean, again, no one knows for sure, but right now the people that go to sell, even if they were in trouble, most of them are going to have some equity in their home.
If they're in that type of market, in your market. But correct. Anybody in a low pay wage, right, like low income wage earners, those are the ones that are going to be hurting the most.
Yep.
Those are the ones that, like, somebody on one side of their family has lost a job and they're trying to hold it together, like, that really need the stimulus checks. Those are the people that I worry about the most, definitely. And we have a lot of those people here. Throughout Louisiana, we have lots of them, throughout Texas even, but no one talks about them. And I feel bad. I feel terrible. It is terrible because I feel like they're unheard, like, people are like, it's fine, we just got to get back to work. And I'm like, they would go back to work if they had a job to go to. Oh, this is funny. I don't know if you do do anything with the internet, like, Facebook advertising. I know this has nothing to do with real estate, but one of my favorite SEO gurus, who isn't a guru because he always debunks all the gurus, is Miles Beckler. And Miles he was the first one that ever teach me how to do Facebook advertising. So if you want to know anything about Facebook advertising, making Facebook ads and learning the right way to do it, go check out Miles. And he has really great about SEO and stuff like that. Totally off subject, but well, I digress. It happens.
Good.
Something, let's see. I almost paid a lot, so lots of equity, but taxes make it bad. Deal in Sacramento, I'm assuming. The taxes. That's the.
So we have here the new construction comes with what's called Mello Roos, and it is basically supplemental tax that is added on. And in some regions, it's really high. And so, yes, there is some parts, not all of Sacramento or not all of Placer County is subject to that. Typically, the newer construction communities are the worst offenders for the high Mello Roos, but it is definitely, I mean, property taxes, the base rate is 1% of purchase price in property tax. And then it can go as high as 2 and slightly over 2, depending on where they're at as far as Mello Roos go. So a kind of average is about 1.25 to 1.3 is fairly normal range in our region, but they definitely can go higher. So if they're in the part of Sac, my guess is they're in one of the areas that it's harder hit for Mello Roos.
Warren wants to know where the best real estate market is for buyers.
Depends on where you want to go. I mean, we have a lot of people flying. Tennessee seems to be a hot area for us right now. I don't know.
And Tennessee is one of those places that is it's maintaining. I mean, the prices are still affordable. The other areas, South Carolina, they're maintaining. They're still going up in price, but it's still very affordable. I mean, people here, if they came in from California, they would die because they would buy literally in their mind a mansion for $500,000. It depends on what your budget is and what you consider expensive. Some people come here from Texas and let's just say like outside of Houston, and then they come to our market and they're like, I didn't realize that this was so much, I'm like, sorry, that's just what they cost, and then some people that have come in from Florida, they're like, I thought your homes were less expensive here. I'm like, we're not, so it depends on what your idea of expensive is. California, everybody, there's hands down, it's expensive.
It's expensive. And it says, where's the best real estate market for buyers? It also depends. To me, I think you got to think about where's jobs. Are you going to a place that has jobs? Are you going to a place? I mean, you got to think about climate and what's better for you. I mean, everybody has kind of a different idea of what's best. If you're talking about what's more affordable, usually the middle area tends to be the most affordable range.
Yep. Midwest. Yep. Always. This is, I know 2 people that bought in Tennessee, great prices. Yeah. I actually had some people leave for Tennessee as well, right outside of Nashville, and they're happy. They're like,
I've had sellers go Idaho, Montana, Tennessee, Oregon,
Wyoming.
I mean, we've got them going in Indiana, really all over. Texas, of course, Colorado, Florida.
Colorado's having a big problem though with the California buyers coming in and buying cash and driving up their costs. They like people that live out there are like, this is great, but it's not great because they had a big boom after they made marijuana legal. So like houses that were like 150,000 all of a sudden became 250,000 overnight. And now those same houses are like 350,000. And they're like, real estate agents that have worked that area for the last 20 years are like, this is insanity. Like I wouldn't even let my kid buy that. That is their first property. That's insanity. So
it's funny you say that. My son's a senior in college in the Denver area. And so he's in the market they're looking to buy, him and his buddies want to buy like a duplex and live in one side and rent the other. And they're looking at like 700,000 for their first house out the gate in Colorado. So, I mean, of course, mama wants him home, but it's a pretty crazy, and honestly, it's not much different. The prices in Colorado in that Denver metro area aren't much different than they are here. I mean, it's pretty similar to our area of California. It's pretty similar prices.
And they blame the Californians for it. They do.
Everybody blames California. I mean,
Well, because all this influx of people came in from California to Colorado, and see, that's what is happening in Austin, Texas too, because people are like, the California buyers are ruining the market.
Same with Idaho. They say that in Idaho and Boise, and we hear the same thing. I know.
Oh, I actually got a question for me here. Let's see. It says, question, Louisiana is humid, swampy, buggy, and hot. Why would someone want to move there? I like Southerners and waterfronts and fun seaside towns, but summer in Louisiana is oppressive. I'm not going to lie, Patrick. It's oppressive. It is so hot. You can you're literally wet skin because it's so humid. Your hair is a frizzy mess. Your makeup melts like you're a wax museum doll. It's miserable in the month of August. But the minute September comes around, you're like, hey, the humidity isn't so bad. This is nice. And it drops just a little bit. And then October is lovely. November is wonderful. December, you get some cold days. January, you get some cold days. But generally, this is like the most I have to wear is a little thin sweater. We get snow maybe once every 5 years. And I love it. Honestly, it's really nice. No doubt about it. August is the most disgusting month out of the year. And just stay inside. If you don't have air conditioning, I'm so sorry. Go buy yourself an air conditioner because it's miserable. But
What's your temps? What's your temps in August?
Oh, they're like 98, 99, sometimes 100, but it's the humidity on top of it. It's like it is not only hot, it's like you feel like a wet blanket, a wet, hot blanket you're trying to breathe that in. And if you're getting in and out of the car where it's nice and cool, and then you get into that hot sun and that's baking cement blasts up in your face, you're like, but you could go out and show houses for maybe 3 houses. And afterwards you're like, I need a nap. I don't feel good. It makes you nauseated. Yeah. I have to agree. I'm sorry, Patrick. It is true. I'm not gonna lie to you. Summers in Louisiana are excruciating. You got to be a tough cookie to handle it. Somebody here says, I purchased land in Montana. Land and home prices have a huge price range depending on the location. That's true of any area, through the United States. Yeah. Yeah. Montana's nice though. My cousin lives in Montana, and now my aunt and uncle live in Montana, and it's beautiful. She bought a brand new house, and as soon as they moved in there, the deer and the elk come to their door. Like, she looks out her sliding glass window, and there's the deer and elk just walking by like, hey, just want to say hi to the neighbors.
Wait, so I live in Auburn, California, and people, I think, from other parts of the country can think of California as all like cities, right? Mm-hmm. I have deer in my yard every day. Like, I have deer, turkey, rabbit. And so I think people don't always think of California as that way, but we are kind of, like I said, I could probably feed deer if I wanted to. I could touch them out my window. So I think people don't expect that out of California.
Well, I think, yeah, just like any area, because where we are in Louisiana, they think that the houses all look like the ones that you see on Bourbon Street, which couldn't be further from the truth. We do have a different style. They're called Acadiana homes, which I always call them Smurf houses because they have this humongous, roof lines, huge roof lines, but that helps with the rain to drain off the rain, so you don't have a lot of puddles. But yeah, everybody's going to have their own perception of what they think an area looks like because of what we read in books or what we were taught during history class or whatever. So, so we got another question here. Let's go ahead and do this. Question: Is the realty business in California aware of the I can't say. I'm going to spell it. CASCADIA subduction zone. Cascada subduction zone is expected to rip the plates down the coast, jumping us 45 feet southeast with a Mag 9 quake is overdue. I have no idea. I know nothing about earthquakes or tectonic plates. I'm not going to try to be a scientist on this one. And who knows? The thing is that since I've been a little kid, and I know that you too, Julie, they've always been predicting the big one that's going to basically rip California off of the off the map, basically, and it's going to go floating in the sea over by Hawaii. They've been saying this since the day I've been born. Just like that grandma that's always been saying it says end of days. It's end of days. Like, when's it gonna end, grandma? Because you've been saying that since the day I've been born. And then my mom's like, she's been saying that since I've been born. So
in California, the biggest people that are the main area that's concerned about it typically, again, is the Bay Area and Southern California. In our region, it's not, people aren't, we all, like Kristina was saying, it's definitely, it's been talked about for a long time, but it's not like a daily concern. Our bigger concern in our region happens to be wildfire. So I think regionally, there's more concern about different types of or natural disasters. And that particular thing isn't something that is on our minds on a regular basis for the most part.
This is funny. If the coffee cup is normal size, then Kristina is. No, this is an insanely large coffee cup. I am 5'1.5" ish. I always use big coffee cups, and every once in a while I give them away. But yes, I drink hot tea, and this is what's in it. It's insanely large. I'll throw this in here. Somebody mentioned something about manufactured homes that I wanted to address. Hold on, I can't find the comment. Pooh. See, this is why I need a what a show host that like pulls this all up. Here, we got a question here though. Question: because of extremely competitive housing market, would it actually be advantageous to work with an agent who acts as both the seller and buyer's agent on the property? I say 100% no, but Julie could have a totally different opinion. But I always have said, and I felt this way for a long time, and it took me a while to come to this conclusion. So you don't, as a real estate agent, don't get yourself in trouble. You may not want to do that. I do not believe in dual agency. Well, how do you feel about that, Julie?
We do it sometimes. I don't love it. I would prefer to not be a dual agency if at all possible, but it does come up. I think your best bet is to work with an agent that has a good reputation and works well with others and people like working with, and that knows how to write up a good quality contract, because that is going to get you a lot of power. Because if you're bouncing from agent to agent on each different property, you don't have the opportunity to really have a good relationship and have them be able to help you and know you and get you what you want. So if you're just jumping and you think that listing agent's going to be able to give you a better deal than someone else might, at the end of the day, it's the seller's decision to be made. It's not the agent's decision. And if I typically would say, no, you are not better off doing that. It could work for you on some occasions, but I don't think overall that's the best strategy.
The only time I've done it in the last 5 years was a brother and sister. And the brother, I represented the brother who was buying the house. I already had it listed by his sister. They already knew each other. They had negotiated the whole entire deal. I just CC'd them on the whole entire contract. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it can be done. I hate doing them. I think it puts everybody in a bad situation, because then at some point you're thinking, are they really looking out for me, or are they just trying to make a check? I think that it does put that little seed in their brain. And I don't want anybody to ever feel uncomfortable during a transaction.
Same.
This is funny. You don't know this. This has nothing to do with real estate again. It says, fun fact, Kristina will fit in a tool chest. I was on a live stream and I actually jumped inside a tool chest. Let's see. That has nothing to do with that. So one last thing I wanted to ask you about is that what is your area doing as far as the influx of buyers? So you have all these buyers. What is it you're doing on your contracts to make them more flashy for the sellers? What is it that you're doing for your clients that's making those contracts accepted, that makes the seller go, yes, I'm going to take your contract?
So this probably seems bananas to anybody that's not in a crazy market that we have, but waiving appraisal contingency. So there's no getting out of it if the house doesn't appraise. putting in a substantially large appraisal gap in cash. So if you don't, or if not, if people that are watching this don't realize, when you're buying a house, what the banks will use as the top value is either the appraised value or the purchase price, whichever is less. So if you are putting 20% down, it's going to be 20% based on the less of the two of those. So if the house doesn't appraise at the purchase price, you've got to come in with that money in cash. And so being able to bridge that gap with cash, and saying that they're willing to do so. Like I said, there's some that are willing to pay $50,000 over appraised value, which is, I mean, it's crazy really. But so we're having to put an appraisal gap really to even have a chance of getting it accepted, because sellers don't want to accept one and have it get appraised for $50,000 less and then have to lower the price if there's somebody else that's willing to pay that. So that substantially lowering this inspection contingency or waiving it altogether. So there's people that are just not even caring. They're saying, we'll buy it as is. We don't care what our inspections are for informational purposes only. So they're still doing an inspection, but or having to do it in like 3, 5, 7 days. Our contract here reads 17 days is normal. And if you put 17 days on a contract right now, you're saying you're not, you have no chance. Lowering the loan contingency or waiving that altogether. And of course, offering more than normal. And back in the day, people used to be really big on putting these love letters together that is a buyer saying how, talking about themselves. And with the new guidelines that have come out from NAR, which is National Association of Realtors, and to protect sellers, that is no longer acceptable practice. And so what talks is money and terms.
That was brand new, by the way. That's brand new. I've said for clients to do that. I've told people on this channel to do that, but this is a new policy that has come out. NAR says absolutely no more love letters that are bleeding heart letters.
We're sometimes going as far as you black out the client's names, so there could be no subconscious bias of any kind about the names of seeing who's on the contract or whatever. So really, you have to go in with your best terms and not anticipate getting a counter. You go in with your highest and best. And I try to tell my clients all the time, write an offer what you're willing to pay for it and you're willing to lose it at. So if you would be heartbroken if somebody got it because they paid $5,000 more, you better just offer the $5,000 more and be done with it. And often people will say, well, what price point do you think it's worth? And it's really hard for me to gauge that, because I'm like, look, on paper, it's only worth X, but I don't know what it's worth to you. So you've got to decide what that dollar amount is, and that's what you need to offer. So it's hard. It's a hard market right now, and definitely buyers. It's a seller's market through and through.
People love you, Julie. Look at this. She wants to know, can you add your add your contact information in the description? I will certainly add Julie's contact information. Believe it or not, Julie has a YouTube channel as well. So you can contact her, and she's on Facebook, and she's on Instagram, and she's on, are you on TikTok too?
I mean, I have like 3 on TikTok. I mean, I'm pretty weak on TikTok. Don't go look at me on TikTok. You will not be impressed with what you see. But yes, follow me on all the socials. I'd love to connect with you guys.
Question, might be a dumb one. Sorry. Does taking tax deductions hurt how much you qualify for a mortgage or loan amount, or is the loan solely based on your gross income? Thanks. Yes. Simple answer, yes. If you tax deduct yourself to the point of 0, so you don't have to pay anything in taxes, then your income looks like you don't make any money and that you're just working to pay all this other stuff that you're doing for your job. So you have to be very careful. I know that a lot of waitresses a lot of times didn't used to count how much they actually made in tips. They would kind of like fudge the numbers a little bit, kind of like gray them up a little bit, and that caused a problem for them to purchase a house. How about you? What do you want to add to that?
I will say that if for self-employed buyers, you want to make sure that the lender that you're talking to really can help and kind of specializes in that, because there are programs that do allow for like bank statement loans, and there are some slightly out of the box. It's not like it was in 2006 and 2005 where it was write your own ticket, but there are some outside of the box, alternative loan programs that can help you. So if you are a large tax deduction kind of you want to limit your net as much as possible, there are some other avenues that you could go through. So you want to talk to someone and kind of plan it out too. So you may need to adjust your withholdings a little, or not your withholdings, your deductions for the next year if you're really suffering and you're not able to qualify. So talk to a professional, talk to your accountant and your mortgage professional to make sure that they're kind of working in conjunction so that you can come up with the best strategy to get you into a home.
This is it says if it needs to appraise out, it needs it needs to appraise out if it needs a mortgage. So yeah, so they pay over that amount that it didn't appraise for. That's what's been happening. I had one that appraised for $225, and she was purchasing it for $235. And guess what? They had to come up with the money for $10,000, or she wasn't buying the house. And the seller did not care. The seller was like, "Whatever, I don't care. I'll just put it back on the market." I'm like, this is something you guys may not know, because my client was buying it as FHA loan. That appraisal stays with the house for 6 months. So even though she would put it back on the market and maybe she was offered that same amount of money, that appraisal stays with the house. And I told the seller that, and she was like, "I'll just wait 6 months. I don't care." I'm like, holy cow. The sellers are gutsy, man. Gutsy. I mean, I get it. Everybody's trying to make money. But I mean, if your house isn't worth it. She ended up winning, though.
The hard part is a house is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. You know, and that kind of defines your market value. And so if you've got somebody that's willing to pay that much more, well, that house is either extraordinary in some sort of location, amenities, or there's something about it that makes people that much more desirable. And so it's hard for folks that are if you're limited on cash right now.
Yep. So Jess says, I want a mobile home that has polybutylide pipes. Owner won't replace, wants us to pay up front to get money back at closing. Okay, no. Kristina says no. I would not do any kind of replacement to a property that I didn't know. I didn't own it. There's no way. Absolutely not. I mean, if it's a cost of a repair that needs to be done, you can have the seller take that out of his proceeds and give it back to you at closing, because that was a cost of a repair, and that can be done with an addendum.
And I don't know your market, but it's a mobile home, so that's going to be a different type. But in other types of, if you're buying real property, sometimes you can do an escrow holdback where it gets repaired after the fact, and if the lender is requiring that repair. So, but on mobile homes, if
it's attached to land, though, it's just like a regular. There's nothing different. Like when you're buying a manufactured home that's attached to property, it's the same. There's still different lending criteria for us here, even with manufactureds on land. Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get an FHA VA loan here with a manufactured home. You can get a rural development loan with a.
Don't you have different? There's different guidelines as far as qualifications and like down payment and everything isn't adjusted.
It has to do with the person borrowing the money. It has nothing to do with the actual type of home. Now, they do have to get an inspection of the septic systems, and it has to be a certain age. It can't be it can't be older than 1976.
Right.
And they have requirements of the particular way it's anchored down in the skirting at the bottom, but it's the loan itself is still a 30-year mortgage.
Yes.
It's typical down payment. There's nothing different about the home loan itself.
I don't do a ton of them because we don't have as many here, but I believe here that you have to put a higher down payment on a manufactured home, even when it's attached to land, than you would a stick built. But I could be wrong. I will check on that to be sure.
Yeah.
It's fairly certain.
Yeah. It depends on their lender too.
Mm-hmm.
Some lenders are going to have different requirements.
True.
All right. If there's a broken down trailer on the side of the road, does that mean someone's selling the land? No, it doesn't mean that. Well, here we had a big flood in 2016 that a lot of manufactured homes went down with the river, and they landed in somebody else's property, and it's too expensive to take it off the land. So they're just letting it sit there and deteriorate because it's daddy's land and they haven't done anything with it for years anyway. So no, it doesn't mean that. It just means that there was a manufactured home that's sitting there that's allowed to rot. Julie, I want to thank you so much for being a part of today's show and coming back, since last week was such a nightmare. And everybody, thank you so much for coming in. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like button. Every week, every Sunday, I do this. We can talk about anything you want to talk about real estate. Make sure you put it in the comments section if you're watching this on the replay, put in the comments section what you'd like me to talk about next weekend. And we'll see if we can make that happen for you. Bye, everybody. I want to thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Kristina. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Don't forget to hit the like button. Got to hit that thumbs up. Yes.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.